Hey everybody, welcome back to Connerty Meadows Farm. My name is Ricky, for those of you that are new here. For those of you that are returning, great to see you again. So for those of you that have never met, this is Freya and her calf Leto. And today we are going to be making Monterey Jack with hot pepper flakes. This is one of two cheese fridges that we have. And you can see here lots of Monterey Jack. It's one of Thomas's favorite cheeses to make. But this is, like I said, one of two cheese fridges that we have. As always, the first thing that you're going to need to do is make sure all your equipment is sterilized. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our double boiler ready. The reason why I use a double boiler is to ensure that the heat is evenly distributed around your milk, so that you're not just heating the bottom of the pan, you're making sure that you're heating more of it so that your milk isn't going to burn or scorch at the bottom. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our raw milk into the pot. Now you'll notice that I'll be shaking the jars to put them into the pot, and that's because of that nice thick cream line on the top. We want to make sure that that's all mixed in and we don't lose any of it. See how some of that cream's still caught up there? So we're just going to go ahead and put the lid on and give it another shake. We're going to take this over and put it into our double boiler. Now our recipe is out of this book, and I can put the link in the description box below. And we use, actually most of our recipes are from this book. The lady who wrote this book is has a shop in Canada, actually Ontario, Canada, and we get all of our supplies from her as well at Glengarry Cheese. So Monterey Jack requires us to slowly heat this milk up to 88 degrees Fahrenheit or 31 degrees Celsius. So we're going to go ahead and turn our burner on. And we have a propane stove, and the burner that we have this on actually has a wide element and a small element in the middle. And right now we currently have it at the small element on low. We're going to go ahead, and while this is heating, we're going to periodically come in and stir it to ensure that our cream and our milk stays mixed together. This is not a quick process. You're going to take your time. You're not going to turn this up to high. You're just going to go nice and slow and let it slowly get to 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Currently, we are at 58.1 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're going to be a little bit. We're almost at 88. Once we reach 88, we're going to go ahead and we're going to shut the temperature off. And then we are going to add our mesophilic culture. So we are using MA 4001 mesophilic culture. And it is a freeze-dried culture. We keep this in the freezer when it's not in use. And there we are at our 88. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to shut this off. Actually going to take the thermometer out, so we don't need it at this moment. And for our recipe, we need 1/4 teaspoon of the culture. And then we're going to very gently sprinkle it on the top. We are gonna let this dissolve on the surface for about 5 minutes, then we'll come back and stir it in. 5 minutes have passed, we're gonna go ahead and gently mix this in. So we use our slotted cheese spoon. We're going to do 20 up and down strokes very gently. Then we're going to go ahead, we're going to put the lid on to keep any hairs or stray bits floating around out, and we're going to set the timer for 45 minutes, and we're going to let this ripen. Our 45 minutes are up. Now we're gonna go ahead and add the next thing that we need to our cheese. And what we need to do is we are going to be adding a 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water, and we have a well, so we're just gonna be using our well water. And then we are going to be adding calcium chloride. Now, I know many of you are going to be saying, hey, you're using raw milk straight from your cow. Why are you using calcium chloride? It's not necessarily needed in raw milk. And that is absolutely correct. You do not actually need calcium chloride in raw milk, although you may find later on in your cow's lactation that the calcium chloride will help get you better, stronger curds. Now, in our case, we use calcium chloride year round, because what that does is it ensures that our cheese is going to taste the same in the middle of winter when our cow is only getting hay, as it's going to taste in the middle of summer when our cow is only getting grass. So what calcium chloride does is it gives you a consistent product year round so that it doesn't change, and when we pull out a wheel of cheese, it's going to taste the same no matter what. So you want to make sure that your water is cool. So there is our 1/4 cup of cool water and our calcium chloride. So we are making a hard cheese, so we need 3/4 of a teaspoon, and that's for 13 to 15 liters of milk. So we are going to mix this in using 20 up and down strokes. You can see on the top how some of the cream had separated from the milk, and that's normal as well. And then we're going to let this sit for 5 minutes while we get the rennet ready. The next thing we're going to be putting in is our liquid rennet, which is our coagulant. And we are using liquid animal rennet. And for this cheese, we need 3/4 of a teaspoon, exactly like the calcium chloride, diluted in a 1/4 cup of cool, non-chlorinated water. And again, 20 up and down strokes, just like with the calcium chloride. Now that we have the rennet mixed in, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna put the lid on this, and we're gonna leave it alone for 45 minutes, and then we're gonna check for a clean break. If you happen to find, after your 45 minutes, that you're not getting a clean break, give it another 15 minutes. Oh, look at those two. Aren't you guys cute? Yeah. Oh no, we snooze in the rain. You guys are adorable. 45 minutes have passed. Let's go ahead and see if we have a clean break. Looks good. Now, if you weren't getting a nice clean break at this point, You could definitely let it sit for a little while longer, but we have a great break. So we are going to go ahead and cut the curd. Now, a lot of books and videos are going to tell you when you cut the curd to cut it into 1-inch squares. We don't do that. We actually use a whisk to cut. We have done it both ways, and we have not noticed a difference. After you cut it into 1-inch squares, you end up stirring it, and eventually they all break down into smaller bits anyway. So rather than dirtying up 2 dishes, we're just gonna go ahead and use our whisk straight from the beginning. So we just put it down and spin as we come up. And we're gonna go ahead and do this around the whole pot. And then into the center. And then I'm just gonna give the sides a very quick, gentle scrape. What we're going for is a uniform size. Okay, now that our curd has been cut, we're just gonna let it sit for 10 minutes. Next step we are going to be doing is we are going to be adding some heat, so we need to put our thermometer back in. Now you'll notice on the top there's little floating bits here that kind of look like butter, and that's just the fat coagulating already into the form of butter, and that's okay. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add a little bit of residual heat. So again, I have that 2 stage burner, and I'm going to put the smaller burner on low heat. And what we're trying to do is we're going to heat this curd up to 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit over the time span of 45 minutes. We're also going to stir periodically. We're not going to stir over the whole time frame, just periodically. So right now our temperature is sitting at 85.1 degree Fahrenheit, and we are aiming for 100 degrees Fahrenheit. We have now reached our 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're just giving it another quick stir here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set the timer for 30 minutes. We're going to turn the heat off. And then we're going to additionally let this sit for another 30 minutes. Now during this 30 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and stir it periodically, just enough to keep it from clumping. You're not gonna sit here and stir it the whole time. Just come in and do it periodically, and no heat. So 30 minutes have passed. We've been stirring occasionally. Really what you're doing is just making sure it's not gonna clump at this stage. Let's have a check to see where our temperature is at. Remember, we have not had any heat on, and we're hoping that it has just maintained around that 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and that the temperature from the double boiler has maintained it at that temperature, which it has. We haven't lost any temperature at all. We are at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So the next step in this is to allow the curds to settle to the bottom of the pot for 25 minutes. So that means just let it settle, don't touch it. You can put the lid on if you want to make sure that nothing gets into it. And then at that point, we are going to do the texture test. Now during this 25 minutes, while we're letting our curd settle to the bottom of the pot, we've got a few other things to do here. One of the things you're gonna need to do is get your kettle ready. So mine's been filled. I've actually boiled it once already, and so that the water will be warm when I need to boil it again to get my colander heated up. Now in the colander, because we're gonna be straining into here, we're gonna need some cheesecloth. So you could use the traditional cheesecloth, which I like to use for cheddar. And then there is this new kind of plasticky, for lack of a better word, cheesecloth. And this is my preference for Monterey Jack. So I'm gonna get that into my colander, and we're going to get ready to pour the hot water on it just before we're ready to pour off. Now, I'm not a huge fan of cheesecloth with a lot of tails and a lot of excess, so I actually cut mine quite a bit shorter. And because I cut it quite a bit shorter, if I was to pour into it, it would just kind of all fall into my colander. So I have these nice stainless steel clothespins that I use to hold it up so that when we pour our cheese curds and whey into here, it doesn't fall down and make a big mess. As this is a Monterey Jack with hot pepper flakes, we need to also prep the hot pepper flakes. Now, in our case, we're just using store-bought hot pepper flakes. I buy them in bulk, and you need to sterilize these in order to use them in your cheese so you don't contaminate your cheese. So what we do is get a little sieve. We're going to put
1 teaspoon
of the hot pepper flakes into the sieve. We're gonna put our strainer into here, and then we're going to use hot pepper flakes. And this is going to make me sneeze and cough. I'll tell you that ahead of time. I don't do very well with hot pepper. Then when we take the boiled water and we pour it over this to re-sterilize this and to heat up our colander so that it doesn't shock the curd. This is also going to get sterilized in with all of this. The nice thing about doing it in the strainer over top of the cheesecloth is any tinier bits, any of the extra flavor, isn't gonna fall through. So you're gonna capture all of the flavor in there.
As a general rule, you'll use 1 teaspoon of dried spices per kilogram of cheese. I just want to add in here quick, if you don't actually want to make hot pepper jack and you just want to make Monterey Jack, just eliminate the hot peppers from this step. You still need to sterilize your colander, but you don't need to put the hot peppers in it.
And I just realized before we poured this off that I forgot to show you the texture test. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a video of a previous texture test so you can see what a texture test looks like. I didn't bother doing a texture test for this particular one because we know our recipe really well and we've been doing this a long time, and we knew that we would be perfectly fine to go ahead and pour it off. But I'm going to insert texture test here.
To do the texture test, you want to basically take some of the curd in your hand and you want to squish it together. And then if it's holding like it is right now, then you know you've got the right texture. If it's breaking apart, so if your texture test kind of looks something like that and it's not staying together, then you know you're not ready. But in our case, as you see, if we squish the curd together, it's holding.
You can see what it looks like and what the curds look like, so we know if it is ready or not.
The video that I had inserted for the texture test was farmhouse cheddar, and this is Monterey Jack with hot pepper flakes, but the texture test is the same across the board no matter what kind of cheese, hard cheese that you're doing. And here we have poured the curd off, we have added the hot pepper flakes, and then we're just stirring it all together. And you notice that we've left it in the bucket, the second bucket with the whey, and that just makes it easier to stir it up and distribute the hot pepper flakes kind of evenly. Now we're going to move it over to the other pot and we're going to let it strain.
We are going to let this drain for 5 minutes, and then we are going to be transferring it into the mold. This has been draining for about 5 minutes now, and then I can go ahead and move it from the colander into the mold. Now what I used to do was lift this up and put it down in the mold, but what I had happen a few times was it was ripping on here. So now I do it a little bit differently. I go ahead and get my cheese into a little bit of a gather. And this also squishes out a lot more of the whey as you force it in. So it just means less is in the container down below here. I'm just gonna fold these sides in. Now this is the different thing that I have to do because I don't have long tails. And again, I don't really like long tails, so that's why I do this. So what we have here, just to go over quick, what we have, this is just a 9x13 glass baking pan. This is a cookie rack, and then we put the mold on top. And the reason why we do that then is that this catches the way underneath. And I'm gonna go ahead, scoop this onto here, just like that. And go ahead and put the lid on. And we'll put this on. Now what these two side ones do is it holds this top one down onto here, and then it'll prevent this from popping up and the cheese being able to seep out the bottom. So that's why it's important to have this bar flush with the top of this. Then the handle here on the top is to push the middle part down and to squish the cheese. Now I get asked all the time, how do I know what pressure this is at? So the first stage of putting pressure on a hard cheese is that you want to tighten it to the point that you have a nice steady drip of whey. Now one thing that we do, just so that there's not so much whey sitting all the way around on our mold and wrecking it, is we just tilt this up a smidge and we just put something underneath it like that so that it drips down on the front. Let me show you. So this is the front, and you can see I have a nice, slow, steady drip of whey. So while there isn't a direct weight on this, for the first pressing, this is what you want to see, a nice steady drip. For an hour, we want to maintain this nice steady drip. If I see this drip slowing down, all I have to do is go on up here and tighten this down just a smidge like that. And then you'll get your dripping again. After 1 hour is up, we're gonna go ahead and we're going to redress this cheese. And that basically means we're gonna take it out of the mold, we're gonna undress it, we're gonna flip it the opposite direction and redress it and put it back in the mold and do the same thing. We're gonna apply enough pressure that we see some whey coming out. On this particular mold for me, it's basically almost as tight as I can make it physically. And that would be a lot different if you were a bigger person. Like I have to caution Thomas my husband, not to over tighten this, because he will tighten it too much and have too much pressure on it. So it's very important to pay attention to that dripping whey. So the next one, after we redress it, it'll sit in the mold for 12 to 16 hours.
Here we are the next day. We are probably 16-ish hours later, and we're going to pull it out of this mold. Now, when we pull it out of this mold, I always make sure I put the little spinnies back in so I don't lose them. And it's sometimes easiest to push it out from the bottom, just like I show you there. Then we're going to undress it. And then this particular cheese needs to go into a heavy brine. And the instructions on how to make that heavy brine are included in the book that I feature at the beginning of this video. Now into the brine it goes, and it's going to stay in the brine for 12 hours. And we're going to turn it, like you just saw me do with the Gouda beside it, halfway through. So here we are, we're halfway through the time frame that it needs to be in there. We're just going to flip it the other direction, and this is just to make sure that it's completely coated. At this point, the Gouda was actually done, so I'm taking the Gouda out. And then, once it's sat in the brine for the appropriate amount of time, we're going to take it out of the brine, and it's going to need to sit on a shelf and air dry for about 2 to 3 days. Now our brine sits in our cellar, so it's relatively cool. It's not cold, but it is cool. And a cool, dark place is a great place to keep your brine. Let's go ahead, let's get this onto the shelf. and let it dry, and you're going to see that I'm going to put it up on the shelf with all of our other cheeses at various stages of drying or waxing. And I label, you can see I have MJ with an arrow there. I label what is what so that we know. And then it'll just sit there, as these other ones all are. Gouda on the top, various stages of waxing, cheddar on the bottom, some Gouda to the right as well. So then we are partway through the day. I'm just going to grab it, pull it out, flip it, and put it back on the shelf. And again, this is going to happen for 2 to 3 days.
After your cheese has been drying on your shelf for 2 to 3 days, turning at least twice a day, the next thing that we do is we add a wax layer. Now, this is a cream wax coating that also has a mold inhibitor on it. So it helps inhibit the mold from getting into our cheese. And then after we put on 2 coats of that mold inhibitor, they'll be vacuum sealed, and then we put them in our fridge. Now, we keep these in a regular fridge at a regular temperature. It just means that they need to age a little bit longer, and then you're gonna need to turn them within the fridge. So you're gonna take them in your fridge in their packaging and flip them at least 3 times a week, just to keep your airflow around them. So I'm just gonna quickly show you how I wax. So the wax actually just looks like glue, but it is wax. I'm gonna take it off. This side has not been waxed yet. So I just use my fingers. You can use a paintbrush as well. And we're just going to carefully wax. And just let that dry between coats. And you can see these ones up here. This one already has 2 layers and this one has 1. I don't know if the camera is gonna pick up the difference, but you can see with this one, it's a little bit shinier than that one. So this is Gouda up here. And we're gonna go ahead and let that dry, and then we'll put the next coat on. And once the next coat is dry, then we're able to go ahead and we're gonna put it in the vacuum sealer.
A taste test that we're going to do of this Monterey Jack with hot pepper flakes. And so this one has been aged since the 7th of November, and we're the 21st of June at this point. So it's aged quite a long time. Typically, we're looking at 2 to 3 months for raw milk cheese, so that it's safe for Monterey Jack. And so we're going to kind of take a look at kind of the size difference between when we have a calf on our cow and when we don't have a calf. So this is about a month or so after we sold our calf previously, and if you take a look at the difference, it just goes to show we have a far greater supply of cream in our milk at this phase, which is making more cheese for us as compared to what we currently have with a calf on her. So this has got some hot pepper flakes throughout it, and it's a very spicy hot pepper flake. So it's a little older, so it's going to be a little sharper in flavor. I find this cheese recipe is a little crumblier than the cheddar recipe, but it's still very tasty. Has the texture and a feel of an old cheddar. So we will take a good slice here. We've got a kind of a cream wax on the outside of the cheese itself, so we're going to have to remove that first, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging with the crumblier cheese, so I'll just kind of slice off a little piece and get rid of the wax layer, and then cut a small piece for me to try. After we've removed kind of the outside with the cream wax, give it a try. And this is one of my favorite cheeses that we make. I like the spicy content, and there's a lot of people that this is their favorite cheese. So we've made this a number of times now, and it's one that we definitely continue to make.
Is that the store-bought hot pepper flakes or the hot pepper flakes from Jamaica? Can't remember.
So this is definitely, I mean, it doesn't taste like that old.
Not
Like,
super strong tasting.
No, it's still got good flavor. It's got very creamy, but I mean, still a very nice cheese. Nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah, as you can see, the texture of it is a little crumbly, but it still holds together and probably would grate up pretty nice for some nachos. Yeah, there's our Monterey Jack with hot pepper flakes. Not too spicy. So it must be the store-bought ones. It doesn't have that much of a kick to it. So you could add a bit more.
Well, that one was a really big wheel too,
Yeah.
though, right?
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, the coverage of the hot pepper flakes are throughout there, so
Yeah.
it's a reasonable amount. So nice cheese.
If you have any questions, please feel free, give me a shout. I'm happy to answer where I can and help out. I love teaching people. That's why I started my YouTube channel, was to help other homesteaders. Thanks for hanging out with us on the farm, and we'll see you next time.